Rene Descartes, who lived from 1596 to 1650, is often called the father of modern philosophy. He's also one of the first thinkers to bridge the old world of medieval theology with the emerging world of modern science. Before Descartes, most European philosophy was shaped by the ideas of Aristotle and by Christian theology. Philosophers generally believed that knowledge came through the senses, while reason merely organised what experience revealed. But the scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries began to transform that outlook. Thinkers such as Galileo and Kepler demonstrated that nature could be described and explained through mathematics. Descartes wanted to bring that same level of precision and certainty to philosophy, to find a method for discovering truth that would be as dependable as mathematics itself. He was also keenly aware of how once accepted beliefs, like Ptolemy's Earth-centred universe, had been overturned by new science, and he was determined to build a foundation for knowledge that could never be swept away in the same way. He wanted to answer two questions that still shape philosophy today. What can we really know, and how can we know it? Descartes inherited a long tradition of skepticism, the idea that our senses can deceive us and that certainty is difficult, maybe even impossible. But rather than despair about this, he wanted to use skepticism as a method. By doubting everything that could possibly be doubted, he hoped to find something that could not be doubted at all, something absolutely certain on which all knowledge could be built. In his first Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes introduces what are often called the three waves of doubt. The first wave is doubt from the senses. Our senses sometimes deceive us. Think of optical illusions or dreams. Since the senses can mislead, we can't take them as a foundation for certain knowledge. The second wave is doubt from dreaming. Descartes asks, how do I know I'm not dreaming right now? Dreams can feel just as vivid as waking life, so perhaps everything I perceive is an illusion. The third wave is doubt from deception. Finally, he imagines a powerful evil demon, a being that could deceive him about everything, even mathematics. If such a demon could make falsehoods seem true, then nothing, not even logic, seems safe from doubt. Through these waves of doubt, Descartes strips away every belief that could possibly be false, leaving only what is absolutely certain. Eventually, Descartes discovers one truth that even the evil demon cannot take away. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Even if he is deceived about everything else, the very fact that he is thinking, doubting, reasoning, imagining, proves that he exists as a thinking being at the point that he is thinking. This becomes the first building block of his philosophy. The self, or the mind, is something that can be known with certainty. It is also important to stress that the evil demon is a thought experiment. It was not something in which Descartes genuinely believed. But Descartes also needs to explain how we can know about the external world, not just our own minds. He uses a famous example, the piece of wax. A piece of wax has certain qualities. It's solid, smells of honey, has a shape, and makes a sound when tapped. But if you melt it, all those sensory qualities change. Yet you still know it's the same piece of wax. How do you know that? Not through the senses, since everything they report has changed. You know it through reason and judgment, through an innate idea of the wax as an extended substance existing in space and time. The wax analogy shows that our understanding of the world depends on the mind's rational powers, not on the senses. This idea, that reason is the foundation of knowledge, is known as rationalism. From this, Descartes argues that we can trust only what we perceive clearly and distinctly, ideas that are self-evident, precise, and free from confusion. The cogito, I think therefore I am, is one such clear and distinct truth. Mathematical ideas are another. 2 plus 3 will always equal 5, whether you are dreaming or awake. However, Descartes soon faces a problem. How can he be sure that even these clear and distinct ideas are true? If the evil demon might be deceiving him, then perhaps even his logic could be wrong. To escape this doubt, Descartes needs to prove that a good and non-deceptive God exists. In the third meditation, Descartes tries to prove that God exists by reasoning from the idea of perfection. He argues that the idea of a perfect being must have a cause, and that cause must at least be as perfect as the idea itself. Since he, a finite and imperfect being, cannot be the source of the idea of an infinite and perfect God, it must have come from God himself. In this sense, he is in essence arguing that the science of Copernicus and Galileo requires the existence of God. But critics soon pointed out a problem, known as the Cartesian circle. Descartes says that we can trust clear and distinct ideas because of God, who is perfect, and God would not deceive us. Yet his proof of God's existence already relies on the assumption that his clear and distinct ideas are trustworthy. In other words, he uses reason to prove God, and then God to justify reason, which is arguing in a circle. Despite this, the idea of clear and distinct ideas became foundational for modern philosophy. It gave later thinkers a new model for what certain knowledge should look like, something self-evident and logically precise. In later writings, Descartes developed a theory about the relationship between mind and body, known as Cartesian dualism. He argued that the human being is made up of two distinct substances: the mind, res cogitans, a thinking non-physical substance, and the body, res extensa, a physical extended substance existing in space. This raised a famous problem. If the mind and body are entirely different kinds of things, one immaterial, the other physical, how do they interact? How can something like a thought, apparently something non-physical, cause a physical action like moving your arm? Descartes believed they interacted in the pineal gland in the brain, but he couldn't explain how a non-physical thing could move something physical. This interaction problem became one of the biggest challenges for his philosophy, and it's still discussed today in debates about consciousness and the mind-body problem. Descartes stands at a turning point in Western philosophy. He was one of the first to place the thinking subject, the I, at the centre of philosophy. This shift from the external world to the inner world of the mind marked the birth of modern philosophy. His emphasis on reason influenced later rationalists like Spinoza and Leibniz, who built vast logical systems of thought. At the same time, his scepticism provoked the empiricists such as John Locke and David Hume, who argued that the foundation of all knowledge comes from experience, not from reason alone. And beyond philosophy, Descartes' mathematical approach to nature laid the groundwork for modern science, which still seeks simple universal laws expressed in mathematical form. Descartes' philosophy begins with radical doubt and ends with a new kind of certainty, the certainty of the thinking self. He gave Western thought a new foundation, one built on reason, clarity, and systematic inquiry. But he also left us with enduring scepticism and further puzzles. How the mind relates to the body, whether God guarantees our knowledge, and how we can truly know anything beyond our own thoughts. In the end, Descartes' legacy lies not in the answers he gave, but in the questions he made us ask and the agenda he set for the next 350 years.